Hello and welcome to the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. I'm Jeff Power, senior writer with RealTime Fantasy Sports. I'm joined by Logan Glaser of RealTime Fantasy Sports as well. Logan, thanks again for joining me on the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. Always fun to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, as always.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun show today. We like to preview all the games every week during our show. We do a quick preview, talk about the over-unders, what we think is going to happen in the game, but then we pick a category. We've done players we don't like. We've done under-the-radar players. This week, we're going to do pick'em plays. So that's a really popular contest on our site. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And also, you can obviously parlay that into fantasy talk as well, because if we like certain aspects, you can see we're going to like them fantasy wise as well with these pick 'em contests. So, should be a lot of fun talking about those, Logan. And tonight, we are running a promo for our pick 'em contest. If you want to go to rtsports.com, click on that Money League link, and then click on daily and then pick 'em, correct? You can get to it. But what's the promo for tonight?
Yeah, for tonight, we got Christian McCaffrey over under 0.5 receiving yards. So it's kind of a freebie. You would assume so that he would get at least one receiving yard. So go ahead and take advantage of that. You can combine that with several other different ones. So if you go 2 for 2, just combine it with one other one, you would earn 3 times your entry fee. Combine it with 3, you'd win 6 times. Combine it with 4 total, and then you'd win 10 times, then 20 times. And if you go 6 for 6, then you'd win 40 times your entry fee. And you can include McCaffrey in that with that.
Yeah, definitely. You want to use these picks that we're going to help you with here as well. So we're going to try to help you win big here at Real Time Fantasy Sports. And right now, first time depositors, you get a 100% instant match up to $200. So that's a great deal. Just go to rtsports.com/alarm, and you want to definitely take advantage of that. Again, 100% match up to $200. So that's for all of our contests as well. But if you want to get in this pick'em one, you can use that money there to take advantage of that. And it's not just NFL, it's MLB, PGA, you name it. We're offering it here at Real Time Fantasy Sports. And as always, please play responsibly. If you have any issues, please call 1-800 Gambler. So let's get into the games now. And if you could bring up that board for this Thursday night game, Ernie, I would appreciate our producer. So these are all the options for the Thursday night game. Again, take advantage of that. Like Logan said, Christian McCaffrey, just zero point 0.5 receptions. So if you think you can get a catch, you're going to win tonight. So you want to take advantage of that. Take advantage of that promo code to rtsports.com/alarm, and then do the instant match up to $200, 100%. So that's going to be awesome if you can take advantage of that and all these different pick'ems we have for this Thursday night game. So give me what you like for your pick'em in this Thursday night game, Logan.
Yeah, of course, they got the McCaffrey promo right there, but I'm also going to be riding with Deebo Samuel over 53.5 receiving yards. So Ayuk is questionable for tonight. If he does play, I think he will be limited with amount he plays with that. And I also think it's going to be kind of a blowout game with the 49ers just completely dominating the line against the Giants. The line right now for this game is 10.5 for the 49ers. I expect them to easily cover that, but I really like Deebo over 53.5 receiving yards with Ayuk a little banged up.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that over under is 44, line 10.5 as well. So I think they're going to cover. They're going to cover that 10.5 too. 49ers going to blow them out in this game. I don't know about the over under though. That's a tough one. I might go under there because I don't think the Giants are going to score a whole lot. And I'm with you. I think Samuel has a big game, but one guy I'm worried about a little bit is Brock Purdy. So I am taking Brock Purdy and less than 230.5 passing yards. So the Giants, ninth overall against the pass. They allowed 143 passing yards in week 1, 228 last week. So neither of those hit that number of 230.5 for Purdy. And Purdy is not top 230 passing yards in a game this year. And just 2 times for his entire regular season career, he has more than 230 passing yards. So I'm going to go Brock Purdy less than 235.5 passing yards. All right, let's move on to the next game then. It is going to be Atlanta and Detroit. Over under 46.5. Detroit minus 3.5. Who's your pick and play for this one, Logan? And what do you like in terms of the over/under and line for this game?
Yeah, for this game, I'm gonna go with Tyler Algier, less than 40.5 rushing yards. So Detroit's rush defense has been great for the first two games so far. They have 2.9 yards per carry to Pacheco and then 2.5 yards per carry for Walker. So I really like their rush defense there. I mean, they've given up some points, but it is a much improved rush defense from last year. So I like Tyler Algier under, especially with Bijan Robinson getting more of the workload with that. So, and I also do like the over in this game as well. It's hard not to choose an over between these two teams, shootout teams, but so I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, I like the over. I like the Lions to cover, win this game at home. Even though Atlanta's 2-0, I've not been impressed with their offense. So I like that there. And then I really like Bijan Robinson, 16.7 fantasy points. And I'm going to take more on that. He has 20 plus fantasy points each of his first two games. The Lions, I think it's going to be a high scoring game against them. They're likely going to be playing from behind as well. So that means they could throw more. Bijan's great in the passing game. Like you said, Lions have been good against the rush, but Robinson still gets a lot of work in the passing game. He's top 20 fantasy points each for his first two games. So I definitely think he's going to go over 16.7 fantasy points. And I see we have a question in the chat. As always, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to put them in the chat. We're happy to answer them. So here's the question for today. Nico Collins, Michael Thomas, or Jordan Addison? Who do you like in the flex there? Collins, Thomas, or Addison? I know who I like. Who do you?
Yeah, so Nico Collins is really taken by surprise for the first two games. I think he was a late round flyer that everyone was liking in leagues, kind of a bench player with that. But then you got to kind of look at the matchups for each given week. So I do like Minnesota's matchup this week. It's the highest over under. So I wouldn't mind Addison there. Addison's got 2 touchdowns so far. It's really close between all three guys. I think I would go Addison, but I think you can't go wrong with either one.
I like Collins. I believe in him. I just like the way he's produced this year. They've been playing from behind. He's getting a lot of targets, so I'm rolling with him. I think Addison doesn't get quite as much snap usage. Like you said, a really good matchup though. But I think I'm going to go with Collins in that one. Like you said, you can make a case for all three. All right, next game on the slate: Buffalo at Washington. So Washington's 2-0. Buffalo's 1-1. Over under is 43.5. Plus 6.5 for Washington, so they're a home dog in this one. So you're going to think Buffalo's going to win by a touchdown on the road? What do you think, Logan?
I think it's going to be a closer game than that. I'm not sold on Buffalo so far this year. They kind of been hit or miss with the offense cooking. But the player I really like in this game is going to be Brian Robinson, over 55.5 rush yards. He's hit that in both games so far. He has 59 and 87 yards in his two games, and his attempts have been great as well. 19 and 18 carries in both games. As they've kind of really haven't really used Antonio Gibson that much. It's been just Brian Robinson out of that backfield. Gibson's had a couple of receptions, but for the most part, he's been quiet.
Yep, definitely. I think Washington does not cover. I think Buffalo's going to win, and they're going to win by a touchdown at least. So I like that. I think I'm going with the over here. I think that's kind of low. Washington's offense has been pretty good, while Buffalo has not been great defensively for the most part. And my pick 'em I like in this game, Sam Howell, 17.8 fantasy points, and I'm going with more there. He has scored at least 19.2 fantasy points each of his first two games. Again, it's game script. I think they're going to be playing from behind. He's going to get more chances to throw the ball. I thought he looked really good on the road last week against a good Broncos defense as well. So I think he can top that 17.8 fantasy points. So if you like him as a fantasy QB2 as well this week, I don't think he's a bad play in this one as a low end number 1 or high end number 2. We got another question too, Logan. Metcalf and Nico Collins for Jamar Chase. So Chase is off to a slow start. Metcalf and Collins for Jamar Chase. What do you think?
I would accept that if you're getting Chase. I think he's just got way too much talent, and it's just a matter of time for him to have one of those big games. We saw it last week with T. Higgins. Burrow started to get a little bit better with that offense last and third and fourth quarter with that. He is questionable this week with Burrow, so I don't know if he's going to be playing, but still, that's just too good of a value to pass up for getting Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I might do that too. You're buying low on Chase at this point. I mean, Burrow's banged up. That's part of the issue, I think. His calf injury is probably worse than they're leading on, which is why his production's been slow to start the year and had a little bit of a setback. So that is a concern. But Man, it's Jamar Chase. That guy he can lead all fantasy receivers and score. We saw him.
Yeah, he was going second or third overall in leagues, and then you have Metcalf, who was going maybe third, fourth round in leagues, and then Nico Collins going 11th and 12th. I mean, we've seen both of those players have great starts, and Jamar Chase go the opposite way, but still, that value is just too good.
I agree. I agree. All right, let's go to the next game. Denver Broncos at the Miami Dolphins. Denver 0-2, lost a heartbreaker last week, had a chance to win, to tie it after completing a Hail Mary, but couldn't complete the 2-point conversion. They go to Miami, who's 2-0 in this one. And the line on that is 48.5 for the over-under, and Dolphins favored by 6.5, so almost a touchdown. What do you think here? Who's your pick and play?
Yeah, Denver's entire identity is so different from last year. They were a very defensive team last year, and this year through 2 games, it's all been their offense, and their defense has really struggled. They gave up 35 points against Washington last week. So I expect another high-scoring game this week against Tua. You got Tyreek Hill. Waddle is questionable, so it's definitely guy to keep an eye out for. But I like the over in that. I do like Miami to cover in that. But with that being said, I've got Jerry Jeudy as my pick, and I'm going more 49.5 receiving yards. He played it for last week. He had 3 receptions, his first game of the year. He looked decent. I mean, they didn't target him as much with his first game back, but I expect him to be more solidified into the offense this week. So I'm going to go more on that 49.5 target.
All right, I'm going for the over in this game as well. I think like you said, Broncos offense looked pretty good. Dolphins defense played much better last week, but still, I don't think it's a strength for them. And I think the Dolphins cover, though. I just like that offense too much. The Broncos defense has not been outstanding. And as you mentioned, Jalen Waddle might sit out this one because of concussion. I wouldn't doubt if he sits out just because, the flack they received last year with how they handled the
Oh,
Tua
yeah.
situation. So I think it makes sense. And because of that, I really like Tyreek Hill and more than 83.5 receiving yards. So I think that really opens a door for Hill to get a ton of targets. I know that's a big number, 83.5, but still, I think he'll pass that up. Broncos also, they allowed 266 passing yards to Washington last week. Not exactly a high-powered, explosive passing game. So now they get Tua, Tyreek Hill. I think he really rebounds this week after his tough matchup against the Patriots last week. They did a good job keeping Hill in check, didn't allow any of those big plays, but I think Hill gets loose and breaks some big ones in this matchup. All right, next game, Logan. Houston Texans 0-2 at the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're 1-1. The line on that one, 44 for the over-under. Jacksonville, big favorite, -9 in this one. So give me your pick 'em and your thoughts on the game.
Yeah, I think that line is very close. It's hard to go. I think I would still go with Jacksonville just because it's under that 10 threshold. With that, I do think they win by more than 2 scores with that. So I would be taking Jacksonville with that. With that being said, my guy that I'm going to be selecting is going to be Trevor Lawrence, more than 22.2 fantasy points. And it's mainly because Houston has really struggled against that QB position as well. Like we mentioned, Anthony Richardson was going to have a monster performance last week before he got hurt. He had 17 fantasy points, and I believe it was less than a quarter with that. So he just had a huge fantasy performance against them. And they've been involved in a lot of high-scoring games. I mean, we saw that last year with Seattle and Detroit, how those high-scoring games can be so good for the other team's quarterback. And Trevor Lawrence has the elite talent to go ahead and put up more than 22 fantasy points.
All right, I think you're right. That's tough. -9 is really tough to bet on the Jags there, but I do think they cover. They're at home. Over-under's 44. I think it goes over. I think the Texans get some points late as they're losing this game. And I am actually going with Calvin Ridley. He has 65.5 receiving yards. I'm going to say less than that. The Texans, like you said, they have struggled defensively a little bit, but they're still 11th overall against the pass, allow 191 passing yards per game. Ridley was not a factor last week after his huge start to the season in week 1. He had just 2 catches for 32 yards. I think he could be a little hit or miss like this a lot of the season. So I think it's another game where Christian Kirk plays well and Calvin Ridley goes less than 65.5 receiving yards. Next game on the slate, Logan. Indianapolis Colts 1-1 at the Baltimore Ravens 2-0. The line on this, 45 for the over-under, -8.5 for Baltimore. It's a big number for the Ravens. They're at home. Colts have played better than I've expected this year, but Anthony Richardson is kind of iffy to play, so that kind of puts uh, a a little bit of a chink in their armor, so to say. So, what's your thoughts on the game and
Yeah,
your?
for sure. It's definitely gonna come down if Anthony Richardson plays or not. I would doubt he plays. I mean, he's been hurt in 2 straight games. The first game he came out in that final possession, which was crucial to win the game with that. Minshew came in, and then last week we saw his injury as well with that. So I would be surprised if they have him play this game just because, again, he's rookie, third game, injured in the first 2. So I'm going to be going with Baltimore with that, and I'm going to be going with Lamar Jackson more than 23.8 fantasy points. So another one where I'm going with more with the QB position. Indianapolis defense has really struggled again, like just Houston with that QB position. Last week they allowed 384 passing yards to CJ Stroud, so definitely one to keep an eye out for. And Lamar has that ability to pass and run, and Flowers has looked great so far in that pass game as well. So I like Lamar.
You tease my player, Logan. I like Zay Flowers in this one. He's at 48.5 receiving yards, so I'm going more. Like you said, Colts have not been good against the pass. 29th overall against the pass, and Flowers has topped that 48.5 receiving yard mark each of his first 2 games. He has 60-plus receiving yards each of his first 2 games. Odell Beckham's hurt too. I think he's going to sit most likely. He has a long injury history. He's banged up already, so I think he sits. That's good news for Flowers, in my opinion, as well,
For sure.
against a team that doesn't
Absolutely.
stop the pass. So I like the over 48.5 receiving yards for Zay Flowers. For the game, I think the Ravens cover. They're at home. I think they could end up winning this one by 10. I'll say over for that 45 number, though. All right, next game, Los Angeles Chargers 0-2, a little bit surprising, slow start for Los Angeles. Vikings 0-2 as well. That's who they play. So this is a battle of 2 teams that really could use a win. The line on this is 54, huge number. You mentioned that earlier in the show, Logan, and -1 for the Minnesota Vikings. So they're favored here. What's your play for the pick'em? I'm guessing it's going to end up being a more. And then what's your line? Your thoughts
It
on the
is. When you look at these teams and what the numbers that they're gonna produce, it's hard not to choose a more in this game, with how many points are gonna be scored. I wish these 2 teams weren't facing each other though, just because I think both teams need a win this week being 0-2. So I would like to select both of them in that. I think it's gonna come down to if Eckler plays or not, which if he doesn't, I'm gonna go with Minnesota. If he does play, then I would go with the Chargers in that aspect. It's leaning towards that he's not gonna play, so I would be leaning towards going with Minnesota. And my guy, I already mentioned him, Jordan Addison, is who I'm going to be selecting to go more than 49.5 receiving yards. Again, this is going to be a shootout between these 2 offenses. Addison so far has 61 and 72 yards in his 2 games he's played in an NFL career, and a touchdown in both of those. I think Jefferson finally does get into the end zone. So if a prop comes out for him over under touchdowns, I would take the over on that.
Yeah, this is basically a pick 'em. I think the Chargers are going to win. I just have not been impressed with Minnesota's game this year, especially their defense. So I think the Chargers go on the road and win. Unfortunately for the Vikings, it'll be a close game. 54 is a huge number, but I still might go with the over there, just because
Yeah.
these 2 offenses are really good.
It started at 51 on the over under, and
Oh,
then
really?
yeah, it moved up 3 very quickly.
3 points, yeah. And I'm going Justin Jefferson. This is a huge number, 102.5 receiving yards. I'm still saying more. He has 150 plus receiving yards each of his first 2 games. Chargers are dead last against the pass. They allow 333 passing yards per game. So I'm getting all Vikings passing options involved in this matchup. I think they're all going to play great. Cousins is first overall in fantasy quarterback scoring right now, and I think he's going to have another huge game. So I like Justin Jefferson at over 102.5 receiving yards. All right, next game. Tennessee Titans 1-1 at the Cleveland Browns. They're 1-1 as well. This is a low scoring one now. 39.5 for the over under. Cleveland's favored at -3.5. Logan?
Yeah, I think this is going to be the exact opposite of the last game that we talked about with 2 elite defenses going at each other. Watson hasn't looked great. Tennessee offense has not looked great either, and both of their defenses look great. So I expect this to be a low scoring game. So I would take the under if I had to make a selection on this game of that 39.5 number. And player I'm going to be selecting is DeAndre Hopkins under 51.5 receiving yards. Tennessee has really had a balanced attack in their last last game. Trey Burks actually led their core with 70 receiving yards, and Hopkins was a little bit banged up going into that game. It does look he did play, didn't look like he was limited, but it's definitely something to keep an eye out for.
Yep, definitely. I think the Browns win this one, and I'm going to say they cover. They'll win by 6 points. I like the under two as well. Two defenses that are going to dominate the game. And I know Tennessee's pass defense is not very good, but I am still going to Deshaun Watson less than 236.5 passing yards. I just don't trust Watson. He does not look very good, and I'm kind of confused by this high number here. I know, again, Titans not good against the pass, but Watson has not topped 235 passing yards all season. He threw for less than 160 in week one. He just looks lost at times. He even attempted 40 passes last week, still threw for just 235 yards. So he got a lot of work last week, didn't do much with it. I just don't know if that offense is set up for him at this point, and he just has not been the same guy since leaving Houston. So I like less than 236.5 passing yards for Deshaun Watson. All right, next game, New England Patriots 0-2 at the New York Jets, 1-1. The line on this is 36.5. This is really low, and plus 2.5 for the Jets. So Jets, they're a home dog. Patriots favored to win on the road. What's your thoughts here?
Yeah, it's really hard to get an idea of how good or bad the Jets offense is going to be with Zach Wilson there. More so the bad, but just because I think Dallas has the best defense in the
Yeah.
entire NFL. We saw last week, and they just completely dominated them. I was surprised they even got first downs with that, but Wilson had that breakout touchdown, which kind of helped salivate some points for them. But guy I'm going to be choosing is Stevenson under 51.5 rush yards. Stevenson hasn't looked great so far this year. He's averaging 2.7 yards per carry. And both games he's had under 15 carries because Zeke's kind of eating into his workload a little bit. So I think that number is a little bit high for him with that. So I'm going to be going under for him.
All right, I'm going over for the line in this one. I think there'll be a few more points than that scored. I'm going to say the Patriots win, though. They really need a win. I know it's on the road, and they've been shaky a little bit, but I'm going to say they win, and they cover that. And I also like Hunter Henry a lot. I think he's been a great value so far to start the season. And 32.5 receiving yards is his line. I'm going more than that. He's top 50 yards each of his first two games, targeted 13 times for the season, getting a lot of looks in this new offense. Jets also allow the seventh most fantasy points to tight ends, so they do struggle a little bit at stopping that position. I think Henry gets the targets again and plays well in week 3. Next game, New Orleans Saints at the Green Bay Packers. This is the last noon kickoff game here, Central Time. 2-0 Saints, 1-1 Packers. It is 42.5 for the over-under. Packers favored -2. Logan?
Yeah, I think this is another one where it kind of comes down to injury with Aaron Jones. I don't think Green Bay looks as good without Aaron Jones. I think he's the guy. Jordan Love has looked great so far with Christian Watson also out, but I think Aaron Jones is the one that makes that offense go. So with him not playing, I'm going to be going with the Saints to cover that spread. I think it goes under as well with that, with him not playing as well. I think if Aaron Jones does end up playing, I would be all over Green Bay with that matchup. But I think he's that focal point of that offense. He makes them go with that. And A.J. Dillon didn't really pick up that much slack last week with a good matchup against Atlanta. So player I'm going to be choosing is going to be Jawan Johnson, had less than 28.5 receiving yards. Saints have kind of used several different tight ends so far. They've used Foster Moreau, and then you also got Taysom Hill, who's lined up as tight end a couple of different times with that. So Johnson only had 13 receiving yards last week, and I think that 28.5 is a little high for him, especially in a low-scoring game.
Yeah, he has not done much this year, Johnson. Been kind of disappointing me. I was expecting better things from him.
For
Maybe
sure.
he'll get going a little bit here. I think the Packers are going to win at home, even if Jones doesn't play. I still like them to cover that number. So I'll go with the over as well, though. And one thing that I am looking at for my pick'em is Derek Carr, 244.5 passing yards. I think that's a really high number, so I'm going to go less. So less than 244.5 passing yards for Carr. He did hit the 300-yard mark in week 1, but he threw for just 228 yards last week against the Panthers. Packers have a solid overall defense. They allowed 235 or less passing yards each of their first 2 games. So that's not that mark of 244 as well. So I like Carr and under 244.5 passing yards. All right, next game, Carolina at Seattle. Getting a little low on time here, Logan. So just give me your pick 'em for this game.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Tyler Lockett over 54.5 receiving yards. And it's mainly due to the fact that DK Metcalf is also banged up, and I think this will be a high scoring game. So I like Lockett to kind of lead that receiving core this week. He can pick up that slack with that. JSN hasn't really stepped into that elite role in that offense yet, still being that rookie. But I think Tyler Lockett's going to lead them with targets this week. So I like that over.
All right. I like Kenneth Walker and more than 13.4 fantasy points. He scored 18.4 fantasy points last week. He has 15 or more touches each of his first 2 games. Panthers allow the third most fantasy points to running backs as well. So I think Walker goes over that mark. I like Seattle to win at home also. Next game, Chicago Bears 0-2 at the Kansas City Chiefs. Bears are a bit of a disaster right now. All sorts of stuff going on there. The line is minus 13, Logan. Give me your pick 'em for this game.
Yeah, with that, I'm going to go with Mahomes over 2.0 passing touchdowns with that. You got Travis Kelsey back, and that offense is going to start to click with him back in that offense. Again, you said Bears are just a disaster right now, and it's a home game for the Chiefs. So I wouldn't be surprised if they win by more than 2 touchdowns, which is needed for Mahomes with passing.
I like that too. I think they're going to cover that. I think they're going to kill him. I do like Cole Kmet though. It's at 3 receptions, so I'm going more than that. I think they're playing from behind, having to throw the ball more. Colt Kmet has 9 receptions for the season, 5 in week 1, 4 last week. So he's top 3 receptions each of his first 2 games. I think he gets a lot of work this week. All right, Dallas Cowboys 2-0 at the Arizona Cardinals 0-2. What's your pick 'em for this one?
Yeah, I'm going to go with James Conner less than 75.5 rush plus receiving yards. So Connor is normally a pass catching back, but so far through 2 weeks, he only has 8 receiving yards, and that's off of 5 receptions as well. And they're playing the top defense, who I think currently is the Dallas Cowboys with that. So I like him going less than the 75.5 rush receiving
Mine,
yards.
mine's the same thing, but on a different team. I have Tony Pollard, 75.4 rushing yards. I'm going less. He has not had more than 72 rushing yards in a game this year. That entire rushing game has struggled some this year. I know Arizona's defense not the best, but they played better than expected. They're at home. I think Pollard goes less than 75.5 rushing yards. All right, one more game up for us because there's no more. The Monday night games are not available just yet. So it's Pittsburgh 1-1 at the Raiders 1-1. What's your prop for this one before we get out of here?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs less than 71.5 rush yards with that. So in his last 5 games, he has not been over 70 rushing yards dating back to last year with that. And last week he had -2 rushing yards. You would never guess that out of Josh Jacobs with that, but he had -2 rush yards. So it's definitely another guy I'm going to be going under with because I think that is a high total for him.
So I actually like Jacobs for more, not the rush total, but the overall total of 90.5 rushing and receiving yards. So even if he doesn't get the rush yards, in my opinion, he's been getting the catches. He has 7 in 2 games, had a good game catching the ball last week. So I like his total yardage potential in this matchup. I agree, though. I don't think his rushing totals will be great, but I do like him to get a lot of receiving yards. So I like more 90.5 rush yards. Logan, let's tell them about our promo we're running again tonight here at Real Time Fantasy Sports. Again, you can do all sorts of different things here. 2 correct picks wins 3 times your entry. 3 correct picks wins 6 times your entry. Go to rtsports.com/alarm. 100% instant match up to $200. So what's the promo for tonight again,
Yeah,
Logan?
for sure. Yeah, so head on to that Pick'em tab under that daily, and Christian McCaffrey's right there for 0.5 receiving yards. You can do more or less. I'm assuming you're going to do more with that. It's kind of a freebie square with that. So go ahead and take advantage of that and add that into your plays for this week.
Yeah, again, don't go less than that. He's going to go over it. I guarantee it, unless he gets hurt in warm-ups. So take advantage of that. Again, thanks, Logan. Thanks so much for joining me. Really appreciate it. We have one more question before we get out of here. Who would you bench, Cook, Kelly, Robinson, or Eckler? Kyron or Eckler?
Well, yeah, it looks like Eckler's not going to play this week, so most likely him. I do really like Brian Robinson this week. Also, I do like Joshua Kelly if Eckler's out because I think that's going to be a very high scoring game with that 54 over under with that. So I would probably lean towards benching Kyron with that.
Yeah, I don't know if I can bench Kyron. I'm probably going to bench Kelly. I didn't like the way he looked last week. I just trust those other guys a little more. I don't want to give up Kelly after 1 week, but I think I'm going to bench him out of those options. It's a close call, though. Like you said,
For sure, yeah. You can't
Kelly
go
does have a
wrong.
good matchup.
Lots of players projected around the same too with it.
All right. Thanks again, Logan, for joining me. I really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody out there for watching and sending in your questions. Good luck in all of your games this week. This has been Jeff Paur with Real Time Fantasy Sports. Have a great day, everyone.